Tropical storm Carl heads back at Mexico's South Gulf Coast. Tropical storm Carl heads back at Mexico's South Gulf Coast. Tropical storm Carl heads back at Mexico's southern Gulf Coast. Tropical storm Carl heads back at Mexico's South Gulf Coast. Let's focus on the phrasal verb to head back, or actually just the verb to head somewhere. What could that mean? Are we talking about someone's actual head? Could a hurricane have an actual head? Or what are the other possibilities to head somewhere? And in this case, again, the headline, Tropical Storm Carl heads back at Mexico's southern Gulf Coast. From the AP, Associated Press, there's no name associated with this article, but you'll find the headline on AP if you Google it. So from Mexico City, Tropical Storm Carl's forward movement stalled or stopped or slowed off Mexico's southern Gulf Coast, though forecasters said the halt should be brief and expect it to begin moving southward toward land early Thursday. The storm had been heading slowly to the north before weather conditions steered it around Wednesday night. It was expected to be nearing the coasts of Veracruz or Tabasco states by late Friday without strengthening into a hurricane. The U.S. National Hurricane Center said Carl had maximum sustained winds of 60 miles per hour or 95 kilometers per hour late Wednesday. It was stationary, not moving, still centered about 255 miles or 405 kilometers northeast of the port city of Veracruz. So, back to the headline, we're talking about a hurricane, its direction, how it's moving, and we're focusing on the phrasal verb to head back, or just the simple verb to head somewhere. So, again, in the headline, Tropical Storm Carl heads back at Mexico's southern Gulf Coast. What could to head somewhere or to head back somewhere mean? As in, I'm heading to your house. See you later, I'm heading to the store. Or, hey, it's starting to rain. Maybe we should head back. Give me your thoughts. Okay, we're back for our next segment. The headline was about Tropical Storm Carl. Tropical Storm Carl heads back at Mexico's South Gulf Coast. We wanted to focus on heads back, to head back somewhere, to head somewhere as well, but we're doing the phrasal verb, so to head back. What could that mean? We read a few sentences from the AP article. Not a lot, right? But just enough to give us some context. And now we're going to get a lot more context. We're going to look through and see if there are any more difficult or, maybe familiar, but I don't really understand this word, or I'm not certain or confident that I understand or could use one of these phrases or words. So to head back somewhere. Actually, let's do head first. To head somewhere. I use this word all the time with Camila, the mother of my baby, and hey, I'm heading over. Hey, can I head over? Where are you heading? I'm heading to the store. Or heading back somewhere. So to head somewhere, it just means to go somewhere. To head somewhere. I'm heading out. I'm going out. I'm heading over. I'm heading to your house. I'm heading to the store. And if you notice my pronunciation, it's heading in my California, Western United States accent. I'm heading to the store. So to head somewhere just means to go somewhere. And we use it usually in the present progressive. I'm heading. We don't typically say head in the present simple, and we're not doing grammar really, right? This is more for listening comprehension. and vocab and things like that. But I'm heading. We just typically don't use this in the present simple. And for someone who speaks Portuguese, right? If you're Brazilian and you're listening to this, maybe from somewhere else, but the intended audience is Brazilians. That's $1 into the bad voice fund. Um, you use present simple in the present. Eu vou. Eu vou ao mercado. Eu vou agora. Tchau. You say I go. We don't use that in English. Present simple in English is not for the present. It's for things generally, trends, routines, habits. You might say I go to work every day, or I head to work every day at 8 a.m. But if you're talking in the present, actually, we use present progressive. So yeah, that would be a difference, right? We use this usually. You could talk about your routines, and you could talk about your, hey, every summer we head to the beach. Every winter, every Christmas we head to my grandma's house to have dinner. So you could use this in present simple, but generally we use this in the progressive, present progressive. I'm heading. What else do we have here? Well, to head back, right? So to head somewhere is to go somewhere. To head back is to go in the opposite direction where you came from. Or let me say that again. To go in the direction that you came from. So tropical storm Carl heads back at Mexico's Gulf Coast. Means it's reversing its direction. Is anything from the article there? Yeah, okay. The second sentence. The storm had been heading or going slowly to the north before weather conditions halted it or stopped it and turned it around. So turn around, right? That is a phrasal verb that means to go back. So to head back, to turn around means to go in the direction that you originally were coming from. What else do we have here? Any other words? Again, this is imperfect. I don't know if anyone listens to this. I don't know what you don't know, but there was a verb here, to weaken. To weaken. And before I explain weaken, there's a large group of en verbs in English. I think they're all difficult for Brazilians. Why is that? Why are these difficult? I don't know exactly, right? I guess you might know why more than I do, but in my opinion, learning Portuguese, learning the words in Portuguese and coming from the words in English, they're difficult, I believe, because they're very different than the Portuguese Romance or Romantic versions, right? Here are some examples. Strengthen. We said weaken. Those are opposites. Shorten or shorten. Heighten or heighten. Those are opposites. Lengthen. Widen. All of these are en verbs in English, and all of them have translations in Portuguese, right? But the words in Portuguese are much different than the English version. So I think that's why they're difficult. Usually, right? So as an English teacher for some years now, and 5 years teaching Brazilians and almost 10 years teaching English, what have I noticed? Brazilians usually use the verb make plus the adjective or the comparative adjective. So when we say weaken, your brain might not, you might not remember or know the verb weaken. You might say to make weaker or to make less strong, to strengthen, to make stronger, to shorten, to make shorter, to heighten, to make taller. We wouldn't say heiter, to make taller, to lengthen, to make longer. So let's go back though to weaken. To weaken. It was expected to weaken. It is the hurricane or the storm. It was expected to weaken before hitting the coast. To get weaker. And to get, right? We don't have to use to make. To get weaker, to get stronger, to get shorter, to get taller, to get longer. So to weaken is to get or make less strong, to make weaker. What else do we have? Sustained. Sustained. The U.S. National Hurricane Center said Carl, the storm, we give our storms names, Carl had maximum sustained winds of 45 miles per hour. Sustained just means not changing, not fluctuating, not changing. So the wind speed stayed the same, didn't change. That's it. There's no more. Again, I'm only reading a few sentences here because otherwise I wouldn't be able to publish these episodes, right? I can't just read the entire AP article. You probably wouldn't listen either because that's pretty boring. This may be boring anyway, but the shorter it is, the more attention I can keep. So, but we have some questions. These questions are intended to help you connect or reflect with the content through English. So the first question, have you ever been in a natural disaster? Have you ever been in a natural disaster before? Brazil's a huge country. There are many different regions and climates and areas with different environments, right? Mountains, the Pantano, the coast. There's dry areas. There's wet areas. There's areas in the extreme south. There's areas in the close to the equator. So, have you ever been in a natural disaster? I'm from California. We have earthquakes all the time. Thankfully, they're very small, but you feel them. You almost you don't really notice until you look around you and you see little things moving. Usually, it's a light, hanging from the ceiling, and you see the light moving, and that would indicate that this is a earthquake. But other than that, we don't really. We have fires, and I guess that's a big one. I can't forget fires. We have fires in California. If you live in a city, probably you'll never see flames, but you'll be inhaling smoke. Sometimes it's so visible and thick and toxic that you have to wear masks. So that's the California experience. So have you ever been in a natural disaster? And to be clear, the slow, careful English, have you ever been in a natural disaster? Said in spoken English, have you ever been in a natural disaster? Our next question, if a hurricane were forecast or projected to hit your area, would you ride it out or stay? Or would you evacuate your home and leave? Again, the question, if a hurricane were forecast or projected to hit your area or your house, would you ride it out or stay? Or would you evacuate and leave your possessions? The hurricane recently in Florida, or any hurricane in the U.S., people have to choose. Do you stay? Some people have no choice, right? You don't have anywhere to go. But do you stay and hope for the best? Maybe it's just a bad storm and there's some wet floor, but that's no big deal. Or your house, gets crushed and destroyed, and the worst case certainly happens. But so if a hurricane were forecast or projected to hit your area, would you ride it out or stay? Or would you evacuate? Our next question, if you had to choose a natural disaster for your neighborhood or region that would happen every 3 years, which would you choose? Fires, floods, tornadoes, earthquakes, or hurricanes? Fires, floods, tornadoes, earthquakes, or hurricanes, or something that I'm missing. But those are the natural disasters that I'm more familiar with. And finally, if you were forced to head back in time, if you were forced to head back in time, what time would you head back to? So this is clearly a conditional fantasy question. If you were forced to head back in time, what time would you head back to? This could be a time in your life, right? I'm 30. I would love to be 10 again. This could be a time in history, right? This could be, I would love to live in the 50s. I used this language intentionally. If you were forced, right? Because there are some harsh or difficult realities for people. If you're a woman, heading back in time could be really bad. If you are living in Brazil or the U.S. and you have African ancestry, it could be really bad. So I didn't want to say if you had or if you could head back in time. A lot of people would never head back in time because going back in time would be really bad for them or people like them. So if you were forced to head back in time, what time would you head back to? Again, this could be a different time in your life. Could be, I want to go back to university, or I want to go back to that time I worked at this company that I really liked, or anything. It could be more sentimental. I would like to go back and when my grandpa was alive and something like that. So those are the questions. You can do nothing. You can ignore them. You can listen and think about them, hopefully in English. You can write down your answer for yourself. Excuse me, that's $1 for personal practice. You can make a video response. You can leave audio responses. I'm sure there's a way to do that. You can write your response, and if you give me feedback, if you answer the questions, the intention is that I can respond to your response. That's the intention, at least. So go ahead.